You think you're chasing excellence, that your high standards are a sign of strength, intelligence, ambition. That perfectionism is what separates you from the mediocre. But what if I told you Carl Jung saw perfectionism as something far darker? Not a virtue, not a trait of the elite, but a subtle and dangerous form of fear. Because perfectionism doesn't come from power. It comes from terror of your own potential. Here's the brutal truth Jung pointed toward. The perfectionist is not trying to become the best version of themselves. They're trying to avoid becoming anything at all. Why? Because true becoming, real, raw growth, requires risk. It requires stepping into unknown territory. It requires confronting your own chaos, your own power, your own shadow. And that's what most people can't face, so they build the perfect cage. A life of constant revision, always preparing, never beginning, always analyzing, never acting. They tell themselves, I'm not ready. It's not perfect yet. I just need more time. But what they're really saying is, I'm scared of what might happen if I actually try. This is the shadow of perfectionism. Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Perfectionism is one of the most socially acceptable ways to do that. It looks disciplined, it looks admirable, it gets praised, but underneath, it's a brilliant, exhausting performance designed to hide. Hide from failure, hide from judgment, hide from chaos, and most dangerously, hide from greatness. Because here's what no one tells you. Greatness is terrifying. Power is overwhelming. Being seen, for real, is excruciating. So instead of confronting the messy, volatile, transformative energy within them, perfectionists keep everything neat, tidy, controlled, safe. They don't chase dreams, they chase flawlessness. Not because they want to win, but because they're terrified of losing control. But life doesn't reward control. It rewards engagement. It rewards those who enter the arena bloodied and uncertain, willing to face the unknown. And that's where the perfectionist falls apart. Because no matter how good the plan, how tight the system, how sharp the image, eventually reality demands a choice. And the perfectionist delays, and delays, and delays, until life passes them by. Jung believed the path to wholeness requires integrating the very things we repress. The shadow, the chaos, the instinct, the irrational. But perfectionism represses all of it. It amputates the wildness that makes us alive. It's not a path to mastery, it's a path to paralysis. Because you can't create anything real while pretending to be flawless. You can't become powerful while constantly avoiding discomfort. You can't live fully while hiding behind a polished shell. Perfectionism feels safe, but it's a slow death, a death of spontaneity, a death of truth, a death of self. And what makes it worse? Most perfectionists are conscious enough to feel their potential. They sense it, that wildfire inside. But they don't trust it, so they cage it. They mistake the call to power for the threat of destruction. And in doing so, they become their own jailer. So the next time you say, I'm just a perfectionist, ask yourself, am I really striving for excellence? Or am I afraid of what might happen if I stopped hiding? Because your standards might not be your strength. They might be your shield. And what you're protecting yourself from is you. To understand why perfectionism is so seductive and so dangerous, we need to look at Jung's idea of the persona. The persona is the mask you wear to survive in the world. It's the polished version of yourself you present to others. Your reputation, your image, your brand. It's necessary. Everyone has one. But here's the danger. If you identify with the mask, you forget who you are without it. And perfectionism? It's the weaponized version of the persona. It's not just wearing the mask, it's becoming the mask. You no longer pursue truth, you pursue approval. You no longer live, you perform. And slowly, your life becomes a curated set of appearances. Impressive, controlled, immaculate, but deeply, profoundly empty. Because behind the scenes, the real self is suffocating. You feel it late at night. That sense that something's off, that you're playing a role you can't escape. That's the cost of serving the persona. Jung warned us. The persona is a compromise between individual and society, but it is only a segment of the personality. Only a segment. But perfectionism tries to turn that segment into the whole. The perfect employee, the perfect partner, the perfect artist, coach, intellectual, man. But it's all scaffolding, all ego, all armor, and the longer you wear it, the more brittle you become. Because the persona can't feel. It can't bleed. It can't create. It only reflects what it thinks others want to see. And so the perfectionist lives in constant tension, holding back the truth to maintain the image, suppressing instincts, editing expression, monitoring every move. This leads to chronic exhaustion, burnout, creative block, emotional numbness, and worst of all, disconnection from the self. You stop asking, "What do I want?" and only ask, "What will make me look good?" That is the root rot of perfectionism. It's not about doing your best. It's about avoiding being seen as anything less than ideal. And here's the irony. The more you chase perfection, the more inauthentic you become. The more inauthentic you become, the more anxious you feel. And the more anxious you feel, the more tightly you grip the mask. It's a vicious cycle. And the only way out is brutal honesty. To admit you are not your image, to let the mask slip, to disappoint expectations, to risk being misunderstood. Because only then can you rediscover yourself, not your brand, not your performance, but the messy, intuitive, creative soul beneath it all. That soul doesn't care about perfection. It cares about expression, connection, depth, truth, but you can't access it if you're obsessed with being flawless. And this is what makes perfectionism so tragic. It blocks the very thing it pretends to serve. You want to be great, but you're too scared to be seen. You want to be powerful, but you won't allow yourself to be vulnerable. Jung saw this dynamic clearly. He knew the persona wasn't evil, but it was dangerous if you believed it was all there was. So ask yourself, who are you without the script? What happens if you stop curating? What would you do if you weren't afraid of being imperfect? Because perfectionism isn't the path to power. It's the fear of what that power might unleash. And if you keep hiding behind the persona, one day you'll wake up and realize you didn't protect yourself. You buried yourself. Carl Jung believed that anything you reject, deny, or suppress doesn't disappear. It goes into your shadow. The shadow isn't just your anger, jealousy, or shame. It also contains your forgotten talents, your instincts, your ambition, and most dangerously, your power. Yes, your perfectionism might not be protecting you from failure. It might be protecting you from the terrifying consequences of success. Because success requires exposure. It requires boldness. It requires the unleashing of your will, and not everyone is ready for that. Most people don't fear being weak. They fear what they might do if they truly let themselves be strong. That's why many high-functioning perfectionists silently self-sabotage. They procrastinate, they over-research, they tinker with minor details endlessly. It's not laziness, it's fear. Fear of stepping into the unknown. Fear of being judged. Fear of making a mark so loud that it can't be taken back. Because when you act with full power, there's no hiding anymore. You become visible. And visibility brings pressure. It brings expectations, criticism, responsibility. So instead, you aim for perfection. Because as long as it's not quite ready, you don't have to release it. You don't have to face what you're truly capable of. But here's the paradox. The longer you delay, the more you betray your gift. Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Your fear is unconscious. Your power is unconscious, and unless you bring both into the light, you'll stay stuck in cycles of sabotage and self-doubt, mistaking paralysis for principle. This is why Jung urged people to integrate the shadow, not just the ugly parts, but the untapped force within. You must face the version of you that doesn't care about being liked, the version of you that speaks without overthinking, the version of you that creates without apology. This is the you that's buried under layers of perfectionist armor. And make no mistake, it will terrify you, because to integrate that version means shedding your false identity. It means stepping into power that's raw, unpredictable, and real. But it's also the only path to liberation. Perfectionism is a cage. Power, real, authentic power, is what breaks the lock. The question is, are you ready to hold it? Because power isn't comfortable. It disturbs, it moves, it transforms. It makes people around you uncomfortable. It forces you to make choices. But that discomfort is the sign you're finally touching your edge, the boundary between the safe self and the true self. And this is where most perfectionists fail. They can plan forever. They can optimize everything. But they never leap. They never confront the raw energy inside, because that energy can't be controlled. It can only be channeled. And to do that, you have to get your hands dirty. You have to release your grip on control. You have to be willing to act, speak, and create from a place beyond certainty. That's what Jung meant when he said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But you can't become anything if you're constantly trying to be perfect. You don't need to be flawless. You need to be fearless in facing what's inside of you. Your shadow isn't your enemy. It's your power waiting for permission. The question isn't, can I be perfect? The question is, am I ready to stop hiding? Because perfectionism won't protect you. It will only postpone you. And every day you delay stepping into your power, that shadow grows hungrier. Most people think perfectionism is about raising standards, but perfectionism isn't about setting the bar high. It's about refusing to fail. It's not excellence that perfectionists are chasing. It's invulnerability. But here's the truth Jung forces us to confront. There is no such thing as a powerful life without wounds. You don't grow by being flawless. You grow by being real, by falling down, by making something messy, by being rejected and still showing up again. That's how power is built, through scars, not polish. Jung said, wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration. And perfectionism? It's the art of cutting off everything uncomfortable. You avoid what scares you. You deny what makes you human. You filter, trim, adjust, reframe, until there's nothing left but a hollow image. But perfection is not wholeness. It's the illusion of control. The irony is painful. The more perfect you try to be, the less you feel. The more tightly you hold on, the less life you actually live. And this is the soul-crushing effect of perfectionism. You become numb. You don't take risks. You don't say what you really want to say. You don't love the way you could. You don't create what you're meant to. Instead, you wait. You adjust. You hold back for the perfect time, the perfect plan, the perfect version of yourself that never arrives. And as you wait, the world forgets you, because no one remembers what was never shared. Jungian psychology doesn't aim to make you perfect. It aims to make you whole. That means reclaiming what you've cast out, the chaos, the aggression, the desire, the power, and yes, the imperfection. Perfectionism is a dismembered self. Wholeness is the reintegration of every fragmented part. And when you integrate those parts, when you allow yourself to be bold, strange, rough, unfinished, you don't become worse. You become human. That's what makes you magnetic. Not flawlessness, but authenticity. Not control, but presence. Do you know what draws people to you? It's not that you never fail. It's that you survive failure without losing yourself. It's that you laugh at your mistakes instead of crumbling beneath them. It's that you speak from the heart even when your voice shakes. That's what Jung would call the individuated person. Not a god, not a robot, not a mask, but a living soul, unafraid of its complexity. So why do toxic people target perfectionists? Because perfectionists are easy to manipulate. They seek approval. They avoid conflict. They bend over backwards to maintain an image. But when you let go of that, you become untouchable. You no longer care if they approve. You no longer flinch when they criticize. You no longer crumble when things aren't clean. You are grounded in something deeper, yourself. And when that happens, everything changes. You create faster. You speak clearer. You love deeper. You stop asking for permission because you realize the truth. Perfection is not power. Ownership is. Owning your mess. Owning your ambition. Owning your fear. Owning your power. That's the path out of the cage. Not by fixing yourself, but by reclaiming yourself. You don't need to be flawless to be dangerous. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You just need to show up, fully. And that begins the moment you stop trying to protect your image and start living from your truth. There comes a moment in every perfectionist's life when the mask becomes too heavy, when the pressure to be flawless turns into paralysis, when the pursuit of control starts to feel like a cage. That moment is sacred. It's your turning point. Carl Jung said, "What you resist not only persists, but will grow in size." The more you resist your imperfection, the more it dominates you. The more you resist your power, the more powerless you feel. And the more you resist life's chaos, the more fragile you become. But when you stop resisting, something extraordinary happens. You stop editing your soul. You stop asking for permission. You stop waiting for the perfect time, the perfect plan, the perfect version of yourself. And instead, you act. That's what Jung called individuation. The path of integrating your shadow, your chaos, your fire, and becoming whole. It's not easy. It's not clean. But it's real. You stop living for approval and start living for truth. You stop avoiding discomfort and start moving through it. You stop outsourcing your worth and start owning it, raw, unapologetic, complete. And here's what no one tells you. Your power doesn't come from being the best. It comes from being real when everyone else is pretending. It comes from letting people see you in all your complexity, flawed, brilliant, awkward, driven, messy, alive. And once you taste that kind of freedom, you'll never go back. You'll stop saying, "I'm a perfectionist," and start saying, "I'm someone who is afraid to be seen." You'll stop seeking perfection and start seeking presence. You'll stop trying to prove yourself and start being yourself. Because here's the brutal truth Jung understood. You don't become powerful by eliminating your weaknesses. You become powerful by integrating them. The shame, the fear, the procrastination, the chaos. It's all part of the story. And the moment you embrace it all, not just the image of who you should be, but the reality of who you are, that's when your life begins. So let this be the moment you break the pattern. Let this be the moment you say, "I'm done hiding. I'm done waiting. I'm done chasing the illusion of perfect." Because perfect never inspired anyone. Perfect never started a revolution. Perfect never changed a life. But your truth can. Your courage can. Your scars can. And if there's one thing Jung would want you to remember, it's this. The more you try to become flawless, the further you drift from your soul. But the moment you step into your imperfection with eyes wide open, you don't just reclaim your power, you become whole.